Once upon a time, in a kingdom that thrived in peace and prosperity, there ruled a noble and compassionate king named Harsh. He was widely celebrated for his generosity and kindness. Every morning, as the first light of dawn touched the earth, King Harsh would ride through the city in his majestic chariot, carrying baskets filled with food for the hungry. He ensured that no person, regardless of their status, went without nourishment. He fed the poor, aided the sick, and shared his bounty with the stray animals that roamed the streets. The people of the kingdom affectionately called him the protector of the helpless, and they praised his selflessness. One morning, as King Harsh rode through the city, scattering food for the stray dogs, a sly and ambitious minister who accompanied the king turned to him and said, "Your Majesty, without your kindness, these poor creatures would have no food. You are their savior. Without you, they would starve. The kingdom is lucky to have a king so noble as you." King Harsh smiled faintly at the flattery. But just then, a saint sitting by the side of the road laughed softly, his voice carrying over to the king. Intrigued, the king halted his chariot and asked, "O wise one, why do you laugh?" The saint, calm and serene, looked up at the king and said, "I laugh, your majesty, because the words of your minister are amusing. The truth is, it is not you who feed these creatures, but the Almighty. You are merely the medium through which his blessings flow. The real giver is above us all. When you give, it should be done with love, not pride. For love is the language that all beings understand, and it is love that binds us all." The king, taken aback, pondered the saint's words. His pride, which had always been nurtured by the adoration of the people, was now challenged. Did this saint imply that his acts of generosity were meaningless? The king's pride was wounded, and he was determined to prove the saint wrong. The following day, King Harsh decided not to give any food to the needy. He would show the saint that it was indeed his kindness that kept the kingdom alive, not some higher force. The king rode out in his chariot as usual, but this time he ignored the hungry dogs and the beggars. They watched in confusion, hoping for the food they had come to expect, but King Harsh passed by, not giving them a single morsel. Days turned into weeks, and the once lively streets seemed to grow quieter. The dogs, once strong and playful, grew weak and frail. The beggars wandered the streets in search of food, but found none. The kingdom began to feel the weight of neglect. The people murmured among themselves, and the once vibrant city became a shadow of what it had been. One day, as the king rode through the now somber streets, he spotted the same saint sitting on the roadside with a slight smile playing on his lips. The king, unable to resist, stopped his chariot and said, "See, wise one, I have not fed these dogs for days. Look how weak they have become. Does this not prove that I, and not some Almighty, have been the one to care for them?" The saint, unmoved by the king's challenge, simply nodded. "Tell me, your majesty, have you seen how these dogs have managed to survive?" The king scoffed. "Survive? They are barely alive. A few more days without food and they will surely die." The saint nodded again, this time with more conviction. "Life and death are in the hands of the Almighty. If it is written that these dogs must suffer, then so be it. But remember, true kindness is not about proving oneself. It is about giving freely without expecting anything in return." The king clenched his fists, his pride burning hotter than ever. He would not let the saint's words go unchallenged. The next morning he set out once again with his chariot filled with food, but fate had other plans. As the king's chariot made its way through the kingdom, the wheel suddenly broke. The chariot toppled, and the king was thrown to the ground. His basket of food spilled onto the earth, and the king lay there, stunned and in pain. To his surprise, the dogs, who had followed him for so many days, did not rush to the food. Instead, they gathered around the king, licking his wounds, standing guard over him as if protecting him. They whimpered softly, their eyes filled with concern. but they did not touch the food that lay scattered before them. The king, bewildered, lay there for a moment, unsure of what to make of the scene. It was then that the saint appeared, his expression gentle but knowing. "O king," he said, "do you see now? Even in their hunger, these creatures chose love over food. They care for you, not because you feed them, but because they recognize your presence. They feel your love, even when it is not given in abundance. You see, today, your wealth, your power, and your pride could not protect you. But the love you gave, whether you knew it or not, came back to shield you." Tears welled up in the king's eyes as he began to understand. For the first time, he realized the true meaning of kindness. It was never about proving himself superior or feeding others to feel good about his power. True kindness came from the heart, and it was given selflessly, without expectation of return. The king had given to the needy out of pride, not love. His generosity had been a means of validation, not compassion. The king, humbled and changed, bowed before the saint. "I now see my mistake," he said softly. "From this day forward, I will give not out of pride, but from the depths of my heart, with love and compassion." And so, King Harsh changed his ways. He gave freely, not seeking recognition or praise, and his kingdom flourished in harmony. The people loved their king not for his wealth or power, but for his genuine care and selfless generosity. From that day forward, true kindness blossomed throughout the land, and the king, once proud, now understood that love, not pride, was the greatest gift he could give. True kindness, he learned, was not about proving one's greatness, but about offering compassion without expectation. It was love that bound the kingdom together, and love that would forever shield it from hardship.